Well, folks, thanks for joining me for another week of the Rec.poker podcast. If you don't know what Rec.poker is, we're a vibrant and encouraging poker learning community. If you want to come join for free, you can go to rec.poker and you'll find folks like yourself that want to learn together, play together, celebrate each other's victories. Come on over to Rec.poker and find your rail. I'm your host, Jim Reid. I'm happy to be here, Bluff-Sterini in the home game. I've got the luckiest job in the world, so I get to chat every week with this panel of recreational poker wizards, and we get to do it because of the support of places like Website Amp and Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. So every week we're here talking about a hand from the Rec.poker forums. Every week we're trying to steal each other's chips in the nightly Poker Stars free play money home game where we play together and learn together. And every week I'm joined by this panel of Wrecking Crew members. So members, you know how to do it. First name alphabetical. Introduce yourselves to Rec.poker Nation and tell the folks where they can find you.
I am Chris Jones, 5x5 or 5B5 on Twitter and 5x5555 in the Poker Stars home game.
So confusing.
I know.
And I'm John Somsky. I like to keep things simple. I'm just Poker Geek MN everywhere.
I'm Kim Kilroy. I am PetVat or PetVat33 in most places, but in the Poker Stars home games, I'm Fergie56.
I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 everywhere. Kind of like John, I like to keep it simple.
I like to keep people guessing. So this is Taylor Moss. In the Rec.poker home game, I'm Gopherboy TJM. And on Twitter, you can find me at Taylor_Moss.
And like any good poker player, the part of the goal is to keep you guessing. So that's perfectly on point for our man Taylor over there. And yeah, I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluff-Sterini in the home game. And if you want to find out about me, you can go to rec.poker/crew and you can learn about me and all the other great members on the Wrecking Crew, most of whom know a lot more about poker than I do. They just give me the mic to get things started. So let's get things started, gang. We're taking a post from the rec.poker forums, which are free to join. This one's by the real Jim, Gibber3. And Gibber, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well, the real Jim. I'll probably see you tomorrow night in our Tuesday night OPA. One of the premium members I got to meet when I was down in Las Vegas. We had a great old time. So Jim writes in, I'm curious to hear opinions on the following situation. This is a post about pre-flop action consideration in a satellite situation. So I'll just set up the hand here and we'll set it over to the wizards to see what people think. So we're playing a day one type of tournament, which has a time limit, and the top 20 will move on to the finals. This is the first of 3 day ones. So if we bust, we have 2 more shots at day 2. So you can re-enter on different flights. There's just over 1 hour left. So this is a timed format, which is a little different than some of the more conventional satellite or flight tournaments. Hero has 51,000 and is currently in the top 15 in chips. Blinds are 1K, 2K, no antes. And I'll just go over a few starting stacks at the table. So the small blind has 20K, the big blind 40, under the gun 9. The hero is under the gun +1, holding pocket jacks. Middle position 10K, hijack 10K, cutoff 34, and button 80. So just looking at the table, the button has a huge chip lead at 80,000. Then the big blind and the cutoff are both between 34 and 40, and everyone else has less than 20, except for the hero, who is the second chip leader at the table. They've got 51,000 behind the button at 80. Jim says, for the most part, the table has been mostly tight, with only the big blind and the cutoff slightly more active. So the under the gun player open shoves. They've got 9,000 chips. We've got 51,000. We're covered by the button, and we've got pocket jacks. What are everyone's opinions on Hero's optimal move? And there are some questions we'll answer here. Kim actually posts right in the forum. Is day 2 in the money? How many players are left? How fast is the structure? Do we play down to 20, or is it just the top 20 stacks that move forward at the end of the time? And then Kim says, and I'll leave it to you to take it from here, Kim. In a true satellite where all prizes are equal, Jack's an easy fold here. But if day 2 is a continuation of day 1, then we have other options to discuss. I think that's a great takeoff point here, because the question is really, what kind of stack do we need to proceed in the tournament? And if it is a straight satellite, then first place and 20th place all win the same prize. But if the number of chips in your stack matter, you're going to make different strategic adjustments. So Kim, what would that lead you to start considering in this position?
Well, he did answer my questions in the next posting, because we have 25 big blinds and we're facing an under the gun shove for 4.5 big blinds. So in a satellite situation, I mean, this is an easy fold because we're just waiting for people to bust so we can get to the prize. However, when he answered my questions, this isn't actually a satellite at all. This is just a tournament where the format of the tournament is that on every day one, the top 20 stacks move through. So it doesn't really matter where you are. It's just a continuation of the next level of the tournament. You move your stack through to the next level, and you're not in the money and you're nowhere close to the money. So it's just a more of a chippy V kind of situation, not an ICM situation at all, which makes a difference. So it means we play pocket jacks as an under the gun +1 in a 25 as a 25 big blind stack. And that's really much what we should be looking at. It's not, I don't think it's super relevant that we're in the top 15 of chips at this moment, because that's going to change a lot by the time we get anywhere close to the money. So I think that we have to look at what's the best way to play pocket jacks under the gun +1, facing with 25 big blinds when we're facing a 4.5 big blind shove from the end of the gun. So that's where we are.
Wouldn't you say too that it's less like a satellite situation and more like a normal tournament, especially if you're not close to that 20. I mean, right now he says he's in 15th place. Obviously, if you're way below 20th place, then there are some considerations that are going to change the way you play. You have to play more aggressively, maybe even recklessly, to make sure you're in the top 20. But other than that, this is probably closer to a normal tournament than to a satellite from my perspective. Do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's not really like a satellite at all, because he says, like, when day 2 starts, with all the day ones combined, there's going to be between 85 and 100 players, and only 25 make the money. So we're nowhere close to the money, even getting into day 2. So if we want to get into day 2, we want to get into day 2 with a stack. So that's how we should be playing in this spot.
Yeah, and in Jim's, to provide perfect clarity of context here, Jim does say satellite in quotation marks in the title of the post. So he is aware that it's kind of like a non-typical situation. It really is a flight more than a satellite, but there is that sense of kind of having to be in that group of 20 to move on, which is a different format. Chris, did you have something there?
Well, and I would just sort of say the other thing about I think there's a weird psychology that can sometimes happen in that last level or that last period before day 1 into a day 2, especially when sometimes day 2s are the money bubble, right? And that's a different dynamic. And then we do want to play like we're playing into the bubble, and we want to play more careful. And then these jacks get a little bit more wonky if the day 2 is the actual money bubble. But here we're just playing these like we normally would, and we want to play this. If this tournament was going to go on for another 5 hours, or if it's just going to continue the next day in 10 minutes, we want to play these jacks the exact same way, really, because this day 2 distinction really doesn't matter at all, right? We're just in a point of the tournament where we have to make a decision. What do I do with jacks right now, given this, the decisions or the things that have happened. So I think that's a big thing. And I think trying to make sure that we don't pay too much attention to that is a really good starting point.
And Chris, is there a way while you're playing in real time that you kind of have that angel on your shoulder telling you, you don't have to worry about ICM here as much, or you do have to worry about ICM here, or, you can buy into another flight? Like in a format like this, that's not perfectly typical. What are you thinking about that sort of this? I'm not asking this very well, but like, how do you prepare yourself to make decisions with the right factors at play in that kind of a spot?
I mean, I don't know if there's a tournament clock here. If you're playing online, obviously you can see how many people are left. If you have a tournament clock and it's, there's usually reasonably accurate to how many people are sort of available to sort of left in the tournament before we get to a money bubble. You should be keeping an eye on that. That's going to really guide you in terms of like how close are we getting to making different kinds of decisions than we would in sort of the more the accumulation phase of a tournament where we're just really more focused on chip EV. And unless we're in one of those spots, I kind of have two modes. I'm either playing to build a stack, or I'm playing to sort of like protect my some of the ICM implications, to protect some of my equity and some of my share of the prize pool.
Yeah, and I think the key that you guys have come on to here is that even though it is a tournament where only 20 players proceed at the end of the day, it really isn't an ICM situation. It isn't really a situation where you should be worried about preserving your stack any more than you would in a normal tournament structure. You should just be trying to use that chip EV to make your decisions here. And so then with 25 big blinds, so we can talk about the actual, given that that's the case, when there's a small shove in front of us. Now, I know there's three ways to play jacks and they're all wrong. The isolation shove is going to be a popular choice here. Are there any other options that you would consider in a spot like this, a call or a smaller raise? I don't think we're folding, obviously, but is there anything about this dynamic that makes you think there's a different course to take, or is it just you've got a good hand, let's isolate with a big pair and let the chips fall where they may?
Yeah, the fact that it was a shove kind of limits what you're going to do. If it was a normal two big blind open, for instance, you might be able to 3-bet here without actually shoving all in. But since they've shoved all in with 4-4, you are really limited in what you can do. 4 big blinds, that means your normal raise would be to 10 to 12, which would be half your stack. So at that point in time, you're really just shoving here. I know that's probably in game. What I would do right here is just shove.
Yeah, I think I probably would as well. After looking left, of course, because we always want to look left and just see how interested those players with the big stacks are in their hand. Every once in a while, you can get a tell that someone is either very interested or not very interested, and depending on their stack size, that might be a relevant factor. So then
there is the option to just like click it back to the internet term, right? Like we don't have to go like super big. Even like a min raise to 7 big blinds can like threaten some of our opponents. It doesn't have to be properly sized versus that open, because they're all in. They have no more actions to take. Now your sizing is just to the rest of the opponents. So we could go 7 bigs, but to me, that's more of like I'm trying to trap you type of move. And when we're under the gun +1 with so many people left to act, do we really want to try and trap with jacks? So like if we're on the button or something, I could see maybe like a click back type of thing. But no, here I think just shoving all in is probably the proper play.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, are we just raising to induce then? And we're just going to call off anyway. So I think it's better to just shove and get some folds from any hand with an ace, king, or queen in it that has a significant equity against us.
So you're saying, Kim, that you'd rather shove and get hands that have an ace, king, or a queen to fold rather than calling or making a smaller raise and inviting them to shove over the top, because even though we're ahead of their hand, it's just they've got equity against us that we'd rather fold out.
Well, in the position with jacks, if someone shoves over the top of us, we're calling off anyway.
Yes.
Right? So we can get hands like king queen to fold here by shoving ourselves. And king queen has a ton of equity against us. So why not get them to fold pre-flop?
And every once in a while, I feel the tension in game, because I feel like, but I've got jacks. Don't I want to get, if I'm in EV mode here, don't I want to get it in against a hand like king queen? Like, shouldn't I be kind of giving them a chance to, even though it means it's another hand I have to beat, and it's going to go multi-way now. There's the trade-off there, right? Between having them come over the top with a worse hand than yours, but then also not having to face that over the top from a worse hand than yours. Does anyone else feel that tension from time to time, or is this just a strictly avoided situation? Yeah, Chris.
What I would say with, there's 3 ways to play jacks, and all of them are wrong. But I think there's a way to play jacks that's more wrong than others, and that's trying to take jacks into a multi-way pot.
Right.
Like, jacks are a really good hand heads up, and they're a god awful hand when you have lots of people in the. And I think if you think of it that way, that's how you justify this shove. We're in early position. There's a ton of players to act behind us, and we want to clear out the riffraff and just collect. Try to collect a nice pot from a player who's got a pretty wide range. They're pretty desperate. And we're likely to win. And also, I think the other thing to add is I think this post comes out because our hero, I think, does shove, and I think has revealed that they then lose the pot because somebody wakes up with aces behind them. But I think I would add that I think you're actually in the right game. You made the right decision, because not only did you get called by aces, you got called by 8s and 10s. So like, that's pretty great, right? And yeah. Under the gun had king 4 offsuit. So, I mean, there's not every time somebody's going to have aces here. And I don't know. I think in this case, there's one right way to play jacks, in my opinion.
So we're going to hear from the one and only Jonathan Little here for a second. And when we come back, I want to talk just briefly about what we might do with a slightly worse hand, or what we might do with a slightly better hand. So panel, just think about that a little bit here, and we'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered whether you should call a preflop raise or 3-bet instead? What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it, or do you just call? What do you do with ace-king when you miss the flop?
Or pocket jacks?
Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/recpoker right now.
There you go, folks. You heard it from Jonathan Little. Head over to PokerCoaching.com/recpoker and try out his money-back guarantee. If you don't think it's valuable, send me an email, jim@rec.poker, and I'll go grab him by the collar. You give that premium member their money back, you bastard. But they won't come to that, because they do excellent work over there at PokerCoaching.com. So we were talking about what we might do with a better hand or a worse hand here. So it sounds like, uncontroversially, certainly knowing what we know about the player pool, we feel pretty good about our shove here with jacks. What if we had aces, or what if we had 7s? How might that? What? Anyone can jump in here. Would you take the same action with those hands? Would you take a slightly different action, and why? It's a race. Kim, you're up.
7s are fold, I think. Aces are a flat, possibly to trap behind.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it can be a raise too, but I think
trying
it's
to
a good
find
spot to flat.
Yeah, I think there must be a hand good enough. Like, there must be a flat there somewhere. So it makes sense that aces would be it.
Kings, queens are a raise.
Yep. And maybe there's So then are you always flatting there only with aces, or are there worse hands that you're also flatting?
I think that 9s and 10s can be a flat as well.
Okay. So jacks are
Maybe
really
eights.
that cusp hand that we're talking about, right? Where you're folding 7s, 8s through 10s are calls.
I mean,
Jacks.
10s. I think 10s can be a shove as well sometimes.
Mhm.
I also think queens can be a shove sometimes. I think ace king. We're looking at some of those as well.
Yep.
We're just really looking in these kind of games where people are calling off with things like 8s and 10s, that aces can be an exploitable flat.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep. I think so too. And all right. So is there anything else about the format of this tournament that's interesting, or how we approach flights, or anything like that? I do think it's a spot here where like jacks are a good hand to be talking about here, because it is kind of, no matter how you proceed, it's going to be with a pretty narrow range, right? We're talking about it basically being 8s plus ace king, maybe ace queen suited. I didn't hear it mentioned, but we're definitely going to be proceeding with a very narrow value heavy range. So there's not going to be a lot of combos in any one of our continuing ranges. Rob?
I think this format really is, we say satellite with quotation marks. It really isn't. It's a 2-day tournament, basically, with a determined stopping point for day one. Now, there are some tournaments that I think all of us are familiar with from running aces, where you could actually, if you survive the day, you have a stack, and if you choose to play another day, you get paid for the stack that you have from the previous day. I mean, if you can make 2-day one, if you survive 2-day ones, you have a stack that you can actually then cash out for. That would be a little different scenario, and it might give you pause with those jacks. If you're getting close to that point and you're going to play the next day to try to get another stack, you might have a different attitude and play it more like a satellite. But in this case, it's just a regular MTT.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because I know the kind of tournament you're talking about where you can enter on multiple day ones. And if you make it in on day 1A, you can still enter on day 1B. And if you make it through, then sometimes you get to choose your larger chip stack that you get to take forward, and they buy the other one from you. So I guess in that case, gang, there's a real incentive. If you've already made day 1A and now you're playing day 1B, there's really very little incentive to sort of just make it, right? Like you in that case, you really want to maximize your chip stack as much as possible to give you the biggest upside between the two. Is that correct? Or do you also, is there a lot of value in just getting that stack purchased from you by the...
Actually, with running aces, the way it works, and anyone here can correct me or add, but I think they're usually about $280 tournaments, and the buyback is for $1,200.
Okay.
So, which is larger than a min cash.
Right.
Generally, about 5 to 10 stacks get bought back over the 5-day ones that they have.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like, what we're trying to get at with all these questions, or what like Kim was trying to reach through her computer screen and shake Gibber to say, is like, what ICM pressure are we under? Because that's like the core of this question, is like, how much ICM pressure are we under? If it's a satellite, it's a ton of ICM pressure. If it's a normal tournament, it's less so. And answering the questions, we kind of figure out it's really not a whole lot of ICM pressure. So then it really like eases up on us and our ability to play jacks. And then, like we're talking about with these day ones, is day 2 making the money? We're just trying to figure out how much ICM pressure we're under, or how close we are to those situations. And it's such a huge and important concept to think about with tournament poker, is ICM pressure.
And when it's relevant, right? Because that's something that I think people need to bone up on a little as well. Even people that feel like they understand what ICM pressure is, there are some surprising points in the tournament where there really isn't any ICM pressure, even though it might feel like there is. So that's something we should all be paying a little more attention to.
And I think what's important about this is that we can be results oriented, and then we think we played a hand wrong. So we so we post it or whatever we do, and we talk to our friends about it because we're being results oriented about the hand. And it's not really about whether we win or lose the hand. It's about if we make the right decision at the moment we make the decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very true. All right. Well, I guess before we head out of here, I want to thank everyone for coming. I do have the best job in the world. Every week I get to talk about poker with this amazing group. It does take a group. It takes a village to keep Rec Poker going. And there's lots of ways that you, the listener, can help out for free. If you'd like to rate or review the podcast, that would be really helpful. If you want to go to YouTube, and I do encourage our listeners, go to YouTube and watch the videos of some of these. Instead, we have a ton of free videos that come out on YouTube. And if you subscribe, that helps us out a lot. If you go to rec.poker/support, you can see some other ways to help chip in and keep us going. And we do have a Patreon option as well. We run a pretty comprehensive website. We've got a lot of cool things going on. They do cost money, and we only charge $15 a month for our premium membership. So we do kind of rely on the support of our listeners and our members to help us keep everything going and to keep doing as much as we do over here. So I would encourage everyone, please just go to rec.poker/support and find a way to help out. It doesn't have to cost any money, and you don't have to do it, but please do give that a try. And if there's if you have any feedback or ways that we can improve, ways that we can make the podcast better, some of our other free learning opportunities, ways to improve those, just email me, jim@rec.poker, and let me know what I can do to make your poker journey more pleasant, and we can all learn together. So thank you to Chris, Rob, Kim, John, and Taylor, my man Dave in the chat, and of course, Jim Gibber. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.